Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today we're going to be taking a look at the bounty hunting industry and determine how exactly bounty prices were established. The Star Wars galaxy is a massive place, and throughout history, the various central governments that have tried to take control of the galaxy have always struggled with securing every system. The Empire tried it with Star Destroyers, but they hardly had enough to protect the core region, let alone the entire galaxy. The Republic didn't even try. They didn't have a military in the last 1,000 years of existence and relied mainly on local planetary defense forces to keep the peace. And so, from the beginning of Star Wars history, individuals have relied on privately armed individuals called bounty hunters to hunt down criminals and settle disputes. Bounty hunters were as varied as the targets they were assigned to hunt down, and Boba Fett was probably one of the most capable and feared individuals in this profession. A while back, a book was released called The Bounty Hunter Code from the Files of Boba Fett. Now, this is considered Legends lore, but it is one of the few sources of information that we have that can showcase how bounties were categorized and set. So during the Galactic Empire's reign, the Empire would set up their own centralized bounty hunting system. This is very different from what we have here in the United States, where bounties are usually related to bail payment and the collection of that payment when an individual runs. In Star Wars, bounties were less specific. They basically referred to a reward offered in exchange for the capture or even death of an individual. Bounties, at least the legal ones, were usually given out by the local government or military. So if you commit a local crime, you'll usually get a planetary sector or systems bounty, which is usually around 3,000 to 50,000 credits. How serious the bounty is depends on what kind of crime you commit. If you're only operating an illegally modified starship, you might be looking at a 3,000 credit bounty. But if you're doing something like aiding and abetting criminal activity, smuggling, or possession of an illegal weapon, it might be a bit more expensive, like 10,000 credits. Murder and kidnapping would be even more serious and could fetch an even higher price. And then there were crimes directly against the Empire, like jamming official comms and breaking into Imperial installations. These might not seem like major crimes, and they might seem less serious than kidnapping and murder from an objective point of view, but the Empire would see these as political crimes against its authority, and of course they would probably enforce these crimes with a maximum bounty. Now, not all areas of the galaxy were organized neatly into sectors and planetary systems. The closer you are to the inner rim, the more likely this is to happen. In the outer rim region and the lesser populated areas like wild space, you instead had regional bounties that encompassed massive amounts of space. 80% of these regional bounties were actually given out in the Outer Rim territories. They typically dealt with crimes like smuggling, operating an unlawful starship, forgery, and more serious things like the murder of an Imperial government employee. These regional bounties usually range from 25,000 to 75,000 credits. These bounties were a great opportunity for a younger bounty hunter looking to make their way into a guild. Before we continue though, guys, a word from our sponsor for today's video, OwnaSaber.com. This is the Ciphered Blade once again. It's one of the lighter and more simple and well-balanced blades offered by OwnaSaber.com. And it looks amazing. It kind of gives off the Sith vibe with its sleek black handle and claw-like guard, which surrounds the emitter assembly. And better yet, this thing is pretty durable, so you can really kind of whack it, and that's because this thing is designed for parrying and practicing. The Ciphered Blade also has many of the same features that their premium Xenopixel line has, like customized color, sound effects, and different types of blade modes. From now until March 11th, the Ciphered Blade will be available for purchase for 30% off. And with our discount code MEOW, that's all caps, you'll be getting an additional 10% off. For more information, check out the link below. Galactic bounties are where things get more interesting. Most likely, you've done something to seriously piss off the Empire if you have a galactic bounty on your head. And the crimes that get you on this list are surprisingly not as brutal as you think. There's no mention of cannibalism or ritual sacrifice of innocent virgins. Instead, we see a very specific list of anti-imperial crime, which makes sense because galactic bounties mean that you are not wanted at the local level, but at the federal level. It's like the FBI is after you. Well, actually, it's called the ISB in Star Wars, the Imperial Security Bureau. Galactic bounty crimes oftentimes involved aggression against a member of the Imperial Armed Forces, bribery of an Imperial official, which, let's be honest, happened a lot. You also had transportation of restricted items like stolen prototypes or superweapon plans, which I think is pointing to a very specific incident. Galactic bounties also target individuals accused of piracy and the possession of a cloaking device. The Galactic bounty list is tens of thousands of names long, and generally these bounties range from 50,000 to 200,000 credits. When Luke Skywalker was identified as the perpetrator behind the destruction of the Death Star, a 60,000 credit bounty was put on his head, which honestly seems kind of low. It also pissed off Han Solo, who had a long list of crimes against the Empire as well. He was jealous that his bounty was only 50,000 credits, 10,000 less than Luke's. Then you had the Blacklist, which was a highly secretive bounty hunting list that was reserved for only the Empire's most trusted bounty hunters. And only powerful individuals like Vader or Tarkin would be able to add someone onto the Blacklist. There are only a few hundred names on this Blacklist, which is also known as the Empire's Most Wanted list. Individuals on this list, without fail, will have a payout of over 200,000 credits. Again, we see the crimes necessary to get you onto this very special list are all anti-Imperial crimes, like conspiracy, sedition, or treason against the Empire, destruction, theft of Imperial property valued in excess of 250,000 credits, impersonation of an Imperial officer, flight to avoid Imperial persecution, and obstruction of Imperial authority. Some of these crimes are actually pretty vague. This is designed to give the Empire more power to rein in political opponents and dissidents. After the Battle of Yavin, Princess Leia was at the top of this list with a 10 million credit bounty on her head. She, of course, was accused of conspiracy, sedition, and treason, but she was also seen as a figurehead for the Rebel Alliance group, which is why her bounty was so steep. Of course, you've also had areas that existed outside of Imperial authority, like the criminal underground. Whether you're on the lower levels of Coruscant or in Hutt space, crime lords had their own system and access to bounty hunters. Of course, the amount of reward you can expect really did vary depending on the crime lord. Han Solo famously had a bounty of 224,190 credits on his head after he lost a shipment of spice for Jabba the Hutt. On the other side of criminal bounties, we had basically personal bounties given out by average civilians. These were usually not legal bounties and involved a lot of personal issues like marriage issues, family issues, or, personal business kind of stuff. Lastly, we have corporate bounties. Like criminal bounties, these bounties exist outside of the Imperial bounty system. Because of the general lawlessness that existed in the Empire and also in the Galactic Republic, corporations didn't always use lawyers to settle disputes, especially in the free trade zones of the Outer Rim during the Republic period. It wasn't uncommon for corporations to have their own private armies and security forces to enforce their will. The intergalactic banking clans famously had an army of debt-collecting starships and battle droids. Corporate bounties were placed competitively based on market prices, of course. They could also be placed for a variety of different reasons like industrial espionage, theft or destruction of corporate property, criminal trespass on company facilities, unauthorized use of company databases, trademark breaches, and violation of a company security agreement. You would think that allowing corporations to hand out their own bounties would severely degrade law and order in the galaxy and also harm the free market. But the Empire and the Republic that preceded it were notorious for being hands-off when it came to regulating and controlling like a conglomerate. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.